Okay, so now we continue with the path of cultivation. Now let's take a closer look on the approacher as well as the fruit of the perfected being, that is prior to and upon the moment to become an arhat. So the approacher of the being, of the perfected being, we can actually categorize them into two cases. One is the previous moments that are more general, and that is when an noble being, to be more precise, when a non-returner, when they are going to abandon defilements in the higher realms from the first category of the first dhyana to the 1 to 8 categories of the Bhavagra. So then we have 7 times 9 plus 8. So we got 71 categories of defilements to be abandoned. And during this stage, during this period of time, they are all the previous moments or the general moments as approacher of the perfected being. Then we also have this special moment, and that is the last moment before one becomes a perfected being. So to abandon the ninth category of defilements of the Bhavagra in the adamantine concentration, which we usually also say Vajrapama concentration or Vajrapama samadhi. That is the concentration to abandon the last category of defilements in Bhavagra. And that will give rise to the cognition of exhaustion. And once a noble being has this cognition of exhaustion, then he is a perfected being. There are a few things we need to be aware of here. That first of all, about this Vajrapama concentration or Vajrapama samadhi. When talking about its ability or its power, we say that it is the most powerful among all unhindered paths that can abandon, because this one can even abandon the most tricky, the most trivial, or the last category of defilements in Bhavagra. So therefore this Vajrapama samadhi has the power to cut off or to abandon all defilements throughout the three realms. So there is a metaphor. We can say that, for instance, a diamond cutter can cut steel. So to cut a piece of paper or tofu would really be nothing for this diamond cutter. And likewise, a Vajrapama samadhi can abandon even the last category of defilements of Bhavaka. So the other defilements to be abandoned by the path of cultivation is really nothing for this most powerful samadhi. However, in reality, since all the other defilements have already been abandoned by the path of vision or path of cultivation before this Vajrapama samadhi, so in reality, this samadhi only abandons the ninth category of defilements in the Bhavagra. Yeah, this is a little bit more about this Vajrapama samadhi. And at the path of liberation, as we can see here, right after this Vajrapama samadhi, all defilements are abandoned. All defilements. Not a single one left. So the first cognition of exhaustion would arise, and then the fruit of the perfected being is obtained, and one is now beyond training. So we will call this noble being as an arhat, This is for Shravakayana, and if we talk about the Mahayana, then this Vajrapama samadhi will rise at the end. This Vajrapama samadhi in Mahayana schools will arise at the end of the 10th stage bodhisattva that would lead to Buddhahood in the next moment. So Buddha, one would become Buddha the next moment after this Vajrapama samadhi in Mahayana for a 10-stage bodhisattva. Next, let's take a look on these noble beings in training and beyond training. When we say a noble being is still in training, it means that they still need to be trained. They still have defilements to be abandoned. They have remaining defilements that still need to be abandoned by the path of cultivation. And those beyond training, for instance, like Arhat or like a Buddha, they have abandoned all defilements, so they are beyond training. So here we see 9 types of perfected beings. 2 Buddhas, one is the Buddha and the other one is the Pratyeka Buddha. Well, they all have this word, Buddha, so we say 2 Buddhas. And we do know that the Buddha has the strongest faculty. The Buddha has the strongest faculty, while so we call it the strong faculty, and we of course we call it the Buddha vehicle. Sometimes we would also call it the Bodhisattva vehicle, because Buddhas come from Bodhisattvas. Just like the master Chandrakirti in his famous treatise, Entering the Middle Way, says that Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas come from a Buddha. A Buddha comes from a Bodhisattva. So you say Buddha vehicle or Bodhisattva vehicle. In a general meaning, we can say they are the same. And then we have this Pratyeka Buddha, which has the strong medium faculty. And of course, it is a Pratyeka Buddha vehicle. Then we have 7 types of Arhats. Of course, they belong to the Shravaka vehicle. And so first one is the unshakable ones, meaning this kind of Arhats, they have the strong weak faculty and they are unshakable from the very beginning. They are having sharp faculties, and they are sharp faculties from the very beginning. There's no need to perfect. There's no need to improve the faculty. So they're called the unshakable ones. And then another type of arhats are also called the unshakable ones. However, their faculties are perfected along the way. So it's through perfection of faculties. So they have the medium strong faculty. And then we have 5 more types of arhats. They are each of them. They are called those capable of penetrating to the unshakables, and those who are not shaken from abiding the fruit, those who are capable of guarding themselves, and those capable at will to put an end to their existence, and those who are susceptible of retrogression. These have medium weak strong, weak medium, and weak faculty correspondingly or respectively. So these are the 9 perfected beings, 9 types of perfected beings. All these, as we say, all these perfected beings, they are beyond training, because all of them have abandoned all defilements, no matter which kind, all defilements. Next, let's take a look at this one. We have different noble beings, and we can also categorize them with different criteria. For instance, in this illustration, we can see noble beings that are in training and also noble beings beyond training. And for instance, we have those due to preparatory effort. And we have weak noble beings of weak faculties and noble beings of sharp faculties. These are during the path of vision. So if a noble being are pursuers, through faith, they have faith by words of others. It means if we hear words of other people and they think it makes sense, they will listen to them. So they follow the faith. And this kind of so with this type of faculty, it is weak. It is a weak faculty, and they pursue through faith. And another kind is pursuing through doctrines and pursuing the dharmas themselves. So this is a sharp faculty in the path of vision. 2 different kinds of faculties. for noble beings during the passive vision. And then during the passive cultivation, due to faculties also, the previous two kinds, we can say that due to preparatory efforts, either through faith or through doctrines, but they do have a difference in the weak or sharp faculties. And then during the passive cultivation, we can also categorize them into two types. One is understanding through faith, who are those who are predominant in faith, or attainment through views, and those who are predominant in discernment. And these two, for instance, those with the name understanding through faith, it comes from the pursuers through faith during the path of vision, or those attainment through views. This type of noble beings in training, they come from those pursuers through doctrines. So you see, there is an interrelation between these names, or between these types of noble beings. Next, we have noble beings due to attainment of cessation. We'll give it a name, bodily witness. It mainly refers to non-returners. If a non-returner has attained this cessation samapatti, we will call them bodily witness. Why? Because when they have obtained this cessation samapatti, the mind will be in absence. The mind, they will be without mind. However, their continuum will be maintained through the body. So therefore, it's called bodily witness. It's within the path of cultivation as well. Then we can categorize two noble beings that are beyond training due to liberation, due to the difference in liberation. So one is liberated through discernment. That means they have abandoned all defilements. And the other type is liberated through both discernment and concentration. It means they not only abandon all defilements, they have also abandoned meditative obstacles due to obtaining of this cessation samapatti. And these, we're talking about arhats in this case. They're all beyond training. These two, liberated through discernment or through both discernment and concentration, is not a difference in the weak or sharp faculties. So we will talk about the weak and sharp faculties of arhats in the next. We will talk about it very soon. But here we would like to say that those arhats that are liberated through both discernment and concentration, meaning they have obtained the cessation samapatti, they have abandoned all meditative obstacles, therefore they will possess supernormal knowledges. About supernormal knowledges we will learn more in chapter 7. And now I just would like to know that I would like to share that this kind of arhats, they have also abandoned meditative obstacles, because all supernormal knowledges, they arise from meditations, from samapattis, especially from the four dhyanas in the four dhyanas of the form realm. And sometimes we would say that this type of arhats, they are, of course, in a way we can say that they are superior than those arhats without these supernormal knowledges. Although in Buddhism we don't really emphasize the supernormal knowledges. As Buddha, he does not really encourage his disciples to use supernormal knowledges. Rather, he focused more on the wisdom, on compassion. And there's the story behind the fourth time collection of Tripitaka, also during the collection, for example, of the Mahavibhasha. There are so many people coming, gathering in order to collect the sutras, the Vinayas, and also Abhidhammas. But because only the noble ones can do this work, right? So they will ask all ordinary beings to leave. Only noble beings can stay. So when all the ordinary beings have left, they see that there's still too many thousands of noble beings on site. So then they ask that if only those, so they will ask those stream enterers, those noble beings of the first fruit, they ask them to leave. So only noble beings with fruits higher than that, for instance, once returner, non-returner, and arhats can stay. After that, they realize that still too many. So then they ask only non-returners and arhats can stay, and the other noble beings should leave. Still too many. So then they say that only arhats should stay, and only the arhats liberated through both discernment and concentration can stay, meaning those arhats with supernormal knowledges. And then, after all the other noble beings have left, and they counted the counted people, they see, okay, we got 499 arhats remaining. So they stayed for the job of collection of the Tipitaka, and plus Vasumitra, they got 500. They got 500 to do the job, to do this collection work. Now let's take a look at the criteria to judge if a noble being is complete or incomplete. And of course, for those in training and for those beyond training, we have different criteria. For those in training, meaning from stream enterer and also the once returner and also non-returner, these are noble beings in training. And arhats, they are of course noble beings beyond training. For nobles in training, their completion, there are three types of completion. First, completion of faculty. It means only noble beings of sharp faculties we can say that they have completed, they have this completion of faculty, namely attainment through views, not understanding through face. So that's the sharp faculty. And the completion of fruit for noble beings in training, that refers to non-returner. Because although non-returner is not the highest noble fruit of Shravaka Yana, it is the highest fruit among the noble beings in training. And the next completion is completion of meditative attainment. Well, as we said, that means this noble being has attained cessation samapatti. Therefore, among all noble beings in training, the inferior ones are those weak, are those stream enterer and once returners with weak faculties, namely with the understanding through face. And the superior ones are the sharp non-returners who have also attained cessation samapatti. And this type of non-returners, we will call them that in training and being complete. Their in training period, their in training has been complete because they have the sharp faculty, which is attainment through views, and they have completion of fruit as non-returners, and they have also attained cessation samapatti, that is completion of meditative attainment. So with all three completions, we call this kind of non-returners as in training being complete. Now when it comes to beyond training, when it comes to arhats, there are two types of completion. Either first is the completion of faculty. Again, it's sharp faculty. So an arhat of sharp faculty are those non-circumstantially liberated. And on the contrary, the weak faculty, arhats of weak faculty, we call them circumstantially liberated. So what is the difference? Well, if an arhat is circumstantially liberated with such a weak faculty, then before they obtain the fruit of arhat, before they become a perfected being, they will require good food to make sure their body is nourished in a proper way. They require a good place to live to make sure they're not interrupted, they don't get bothered by other beings or by other noises and so on. And they require a good place without disease, in a good peaceful country. And they require good teachers, good Dharma teachers to mentor, to to mentor them, to give them advice, or to guide their cultivation. They may also need good classmates, good fellows, Dharma friends, so they could work together, so they could progress together. So there are a lot of conditions that they need to make sure they can progress, to make sure they can one day obtain the fruit of arhathood. They can become the perfected being. That's the weak faculties. Their completion, their perfection depends on many factors. While those arhats with sharp faculties, which is called non-circumstantially liberated, they don't really, their perfection, their obtaining of this perfection does not really depend on so many factors. They don't really need very good food. They don't really need a very peaceful and calmful place. They don't really need good Dharma teachers around or good Dharma friends around to progress together. So they are called the non-circumstantially liberated arhats, which are with sharp faculties. Okay, now we have explained the difference between the weak and sharp faculties for the perfected beings, for arhats. So therefore, okay, why there is no completion of fruit for these perfected beings beyond training? Because their fruit, arhat, is already the highest. There's no need to say. There's nothing to compare with. It's already the highest. So if we consider this completion of two types, of faculty and of meditative attainment, then we can say that the inferior ones, the inferior perfected beings, are those with weak faculties. Those who are circumstantially liberated, and plus they're liberated through discernment. They haven't obtained the cessation samapati yet. And the superior ones, the superior perfected beings, are those with sharp faculties, namely non-circumstantially liberated, and they're liberated through both discernment and concentration. So they have obtained the samapati, the cessation samapati. They have supernormal powers, supernormal knowledges, and for these perfected beings, we will say that they are beyond training and being complete. Okay, that's for this topic, complete or incomplete for noble beings in or beyond training. In the end of this chapter, let's take a look on the 37 factors conducive to enlightenment. These are actually highly valued and followed and practiced by all vehicles and all schools, Hinayana and Mahayana, which also includes the Vajrayana. So they are shared and very much valued for all Buddhist practitioners. So first of all, we see that these 37 factors can be categorized in 7 groups. The 4 applications of mindfulness, 4 right efforts, 4 bases of supernormal accomplishments, 5 faculties, 5 powers, 7 members of enlightenment, and 8 members of the Noble Path. To be more precise, the 4 applications of mindfulness, we have learned it earlier. They are about the body, sensation, mind, and other factors. And we have particular, common, and collectively ways of practicing. And the 4 right efforts, they are to grow and enhance the good dhammas and to destroy and prevent the bad dhammas. That's the 4 right efforts. And the 4 bases of supernormal accomplishments, they are inclination, diligence, mind, and discernment. These are samapatis in nature. And the 5 faculties and the 5 powers, they are the faith, diligence, mindfulness, concentration, and discernment. And the 7 members of enlightenment, they are investigating factors, diligence, satisfaction, equanimity, mindfulness, pliancy, and concentration. And the 8 members of the Noble Path, they are right diligence, right mindfulness, right concentration, right views, right thinking, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. The last 3, from right speech and right action to right livelihood. These 3 are moralities. They are disciplines. Okay, so these 7 groups, they also correspond to 4 stages. The stage of the beginner, that is to say the stage conductive deliberation, that the 4 applications of mindfulness correspond to this stage. And then the 4 right efforts, 4 bases of supernormal accomplishments for 5 faculties and 5 powers, they correspond to the stages conductive to penetration, namely heat, summit, receptivity, and the supreme mundane Dharma. And then this 7 members of enlightenment, they correspond to the path of cultivation, and the 8 members of the noble path, they correspond to the path of vision. Well, for the latter 2, the 7 members of enlightenment as 8 members of the noble path corresponding to the path of cultivation and path of vision, respectively. This is the view of Hinayana, of Savastivada. While Mahayana has a different view. They would say that the 8 members of the noble path correspond to the path of cultivation, and the 7 members of enlightenment, that is the path of vision. Yep. So then about if they are pure or impure, we would say that the 7 members of enlightenment and the 8 members of the noble path, these 15 factors conductive to enlightenment, they are pure and pure only. And the rest, the other 22 factors, they can be of 2 types, either pure or impure. Next, let's take a look at how many and in where. How many factors conductive to enlightenment, and where do they exist in the three realms, or where do they exist in a stage of mind? So we have this table. First, the mind of Kamadhatu and that of Bhavagra, they can have maximum. They can have only 22 out of 37 here. Except the 7 members of enlightenment and 8 members of the noble path. And the reason is very clear, because the last 15 factors, they are only pure, while the mind of Kamadhatu or the mind of Bhavagra, they are lack of pure factors. For instance, the mind of Kamadhatu is without samapatis, therefore no pure factors. However, we have to say that a noble being who lives in Kamadhatu, or a noble being that is being reborn into the Bhavagra, of course they have these pure factors. But here we talk about the mind, the stage of mind. And then the preliminary concentration, we have 36 factors except satisfaction. The satisfaction as in the 7 members of enlightenment. Why? Because the preliminary concentration as an unhindered path, it is realized through effort and still involves this fear of retrogression. Because when one is still fighting with the defilements, it is not possible to have this satisfaction at the same time. Therefore, 36 except satisfaction. And the stage of mind in first jhana has all 37 factors conductive to enlightenment. And then the second jhana would have 36, except the right thinking, because due to the absence of vitaka and vichara, or mainly due to the lack of the initial inquiry. And then the intermediate meditation plus the third and fourth dhyana, they have 35 factors conductive to enlightenment, except satisfaction and right thinking. Because also for similar reasons, there is a lack of satisfaction, there is also a lack of vitaka and vichara. Therefore, they have 35. And for the 3 formless meditations below below the mind of Bhavagra, they have 32 factors conductive to enlightenment, except satisfaction, right thinking, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Because these 3 formless meditations, they are only associated with neutral sensations, and they're also without vitaka, and there's no bodily or vehicle actions. There's a lack of material faculties, so the right speech, right action, right livelihood, which belong to morality, of course, they do not exist. So this is a categorization of these 37 factors, and where can we find them? in the different stages of mind. If we examine the real entities of these 37 factors, we will realize that the 37 factors can be are actually 10 real entities in nature. So, for instance, the face faculty and the face power, these two are face as the real entity, and also the forthright efforts plus the diligence faculty and the diligence power and the diligence member of enlightenment plus the right diligence. These 8 are diligence, have diligence as the real entity, and so on. So if you look at this table, you have very clear overview of which factors have which real entity, all the way until the 3 morality members, the right speech, right action, right livelihood, which are morality as the real entity. So if we further relate these 10 real entities to the different types of factors, as we have learned in the 75 factors in 5 categories, we will see that the faith, diligence, equanimity, and appliancy, these 4 are good permeating mental factors, which correspond to 12 factors out of 37. And then we have mindfulness, discernment, concentration, and satisfaction. These 4 are by nature generally permeating mental factors, which correspond to 21 factors out of the 37. And then we also have this thought that belong to the indeterminate mental factors, which is actually the vitaka. And then we have the morality, which is rupa, the material phenomena, and we have 3 corresponding to the 3 factors out of 37. So 12 plus 21 plus 1 plus 3, 37 factors conducive to enlightenment. So that's the main content for this lecture, and this is also the end of chapter 6. In this chapter, we have learned quite a lot about the noble path, all the way from the very beginning, that we should qualify ourselves as a Buddhist practitioner, and after that we should practice and cultivate on the meditations on calm abiding, meditations on insight. That's the general path, and of course, and then we need to start cultivate. After that, we need to cultivate the 4 roots of good, from heat to a summit, and then receptivity, and then the supreme mundane factor before we penetrate. So after that, we will enter the path of vision, and then the 60 moments. After 60 moments, we will enter the path of cultivation, where we will further abandon defilements associated that exist in the 3 realms, until all the way up until we become a perfected being. And of course, the definition of a perfected being is different in Hinayana and Mahayana. For Hinayana, an arhat is a perfected being, or for Mahayana, a Buddha is a perfected being. And we have also discussed a lot of terminologies, including these the 37 factors conducive to enlightenment, which we will very often encounter. We will very often meet them when we read text of Buddhism. So by understanding these, I'm very sure it will be very helpful for you who has an interest in Buddhism literature, and also daily practice of Buddhism. Okay, this is for chapter 6. Next, in the next lecture, we will start to learn chapter 7 about cognitions, because we need to abandon defilements, and we can only do that by cognitions. Okay, that is for now.